The Roman Empire didn't fall in a single day. It died slowly over centuries. An empire that once ruled nearly the entire known world, reduced to a collapsing shell, surrounded by enemies, betrayed from within, and led by emperors who could barely control their own armies. But here's the terrifying part. Rome wasn't destroyed by one invasion, not one battle, not even one enemy. It collapsed because the very system that made Rome powerful eventually became the reason it failed. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how the greatest empire in history lost everything. For over 1,000 years, Rome stood unmatched. Its armies conquered continents. Its roads connected millions. Its emperors ruled from Britain all the way to the Middle East. At its peak, the Roman Empire covered nearly 2 million square miles and controlled over 70 million people. To the average Roman citizen, the empire looked eternal. But underneath the glory, cracks had already begun to form. And those cracks would soon tear the empire apart. The beginning of the end started far away from Rome itself. Deep in the eastern lands beyond the empire's borders, a terrifying force was moving westward. The Huns. Nobody knew exactly where they came from. But wherever they appeared, destruction followed. Entire tribes were wiped out. Villages burned. Kingdoms vanished overnight. And as the Huns pushed west, thousands of barbarian tribes fled directly toward Roman territory. One of those tribes was the Goths. In the year 376 AD, desperate and starving, the Goths arrived at the Roman border near the Danube River. They weren't asking for war. They were asking for shelter. The Roman government agreed to let them cross into the empire. But what happened next would become one of the worst mistakes in Roman history. Instead of helping the refugees, Roman officials abused them. Food was withheld. Families starved. Corrupt commanders sold supplies for massive profits. Some Gothic parents became so desperate, they sold their own children into slavery just for scraps of rotten meat. Imagine that. An entire people trapped inside a foreign empire, starving, humiliated, and betrayed. Eventually, the Goths had enough. And when they finally rebelled, Rome realized too late what it had created. In 378 AD, the Roman Emperor Valens marched east to crush the uprising. He believed Rome's professional army would destroy the Goths easily. Instead, he walked directly into disaster. Near the city of Adrianople, the Gothic forces surrounded the Roman army. What happened next shocked the ancient world. The Roman lines collapsed. Soldiers were slaughtered by the thousands. Panic spread everywhere. Nearly 2/3 of the Eastern Roman army was wiped out in a single battle. And Emperor Valens himself disappeared in the chaos. Some reports claimed he burned alive inside a farmhouse. Others said his body was never found at all. Either way, the message was clear. Rome was no longer invincible. And this was only the beginning. Because after Adrianople, the empire made another decision that would haunt it forever. The Goths were allowed to settle inside Roman territory. They kept their leaders, their culture, their identity, and many of them even joined the Roman army itself. At first, this seemed like a practical solution. Rome needed soldiers. The Goths needed land. But the empire had just allowed a massive foreign population to settle within its borders, while tensions between Romans and Goths continued growing every year. Then came a man named Alaric, and he would become one of Rome's greatest nightmares. Alaric had once served in the Roman military. He understood Roman strategy, Roman politics, Roman weakness. But after years of broken promises and mistreatment from the empire, he turned against Rome completely. The Goths chose him as their king. And soon, Alaric marched directly toward the heart of the Western Roman Empire. At first, Rome survived. A brilliant general named Stilicho managed to stop several Gothic invasions and temporarily save the empire. But there was a problem. Rome had become dangerously dependent on a handful of powerful military leaders. And when politics entered the picture, everything fell apart. In 408 AD, Emperor Honorius executed Stilicho. The very man defending the empire was killed by his own government. And with Stilicho gone, Rome's defenses collapsed almost instantly. Alaric saw his opportunity. He marched on Rome and surrounded the city. Inside the walls, panic spread fast. Food supplies disappeared. Starvation took hold. Citizens reportedly ate rats just to survive. Eventually, the Romans paid a massive ransom to make the Goths leave. Gold, silver, thousands of pounds of precious metals. But the peace didn't last. Negotiations failed again. And Alaric returned. For the third time, the Goths marched toward Rome. This time, almost nobody could stop them. In the year 410 AD, something happened that many Romans believed was impossible. Rome was captured. For 3 straight days, Gothic soldiers looted the city that had once ruled the world. Temples were stripped. Homes destroyed. Treasures stolen. The psychological shock was enormous. For nearly 800 years, no foreign enemy had successfully sacked Rome itself. People across the empire couldn't believe the news. The eternal city had fallen. And strangely enough, the emperor barely reacted. Honorius, safely hiding in the city of Ravenna, was reportedly told, "Rome has perished." At first he panicked. Not because of the city, but because he thought they meant his favorite pet chicken, which was also named Rome. When he realized the city itself had fallen instead, he was relieved. That story perfectly captures the final years of the Western Roman Empire. Disconnected rulers, weak leadership, and an empire collapsing faster every year. But here's the terrifying part. The sack of Rome wasn't the end. It was only proof that the empire could bleed. And once the world saw Rome was vulnerable, everyone moved in for the kill. Across the empire, barbarian tribes began taking Roman territory piece by piece. In Britain, Roman control collapsed completely. The empire was too weak to defend the island anymore. Roman soldiers abandoned the province, leaving entire towns defenseless. For the first time in centuries, Britain was on its own. Then came the Rhine invasions. Massive groups of Germanic tribes crossed into Roman territory, destroying cities as they moved deeper into Gaul. The Vandals, the Suebi, the Alans, one after another, they carved away pieces of the empire. And Rome no longer had the strength to stop them. But the worst invasion was still coming. Because soon, a new enemy would appear from the east. An enemy so terrifying that even hardened barbarians fled from him. Attila the Hun. And when Attila marched toward the Western Roman Empire, Europe itself would tremble. By the mid-400s, the Western Roman Empire was barely holding itself together. Its borders were collapsing. Its economy was failing. Its armies were no longer truly Roman. And now, the most feared man in the world was approaching. Attila the Hun. Even today, his name is legendary. Ancient writers described him as a punishment sent by God. Entire cities surrendered before his armies even arrived. And the terrifying truth is, Attila almost destroyed what remained of the Roman Empire completely. The Huns were unlike anything Rome had faced before. They moved fast. They fought on horseback. And their archers could rain arrows down while riding at full speed. Roman armies, built around discipline and formation fighting, struggled to adapt against them. But Attila's greatest weapon wasn't just military power. It was fear. As stories of massacres spread across Europe, entire populations fled in panic. Villages emptied overnight. Trade routes collapsed. and barbarian tribes pushed deeper into Roman territory, trying to escape the Huns themselves. The empire was being crushed from every direction at once. In 451 AD, Attila invaded Gaul with a massive army. Cities burned in his path. Thousands were killed. And for Rome, this was a fight for survival. The Western Roman general Flavius Aetius knew he couldn't defeat Attila alone. So Rome did something unthinkable. It allied itself with barbarian tribes. Former enemies now fought side by side because the Huns terrified everyone equally. Visigoths, Franks, Roman forces. Together, they confronted Attila near the Catalonian plains. The battle was catastrophic. Bodies covered the battlefield. Ancient historians claimed rivers ran red with blood. But somehow, Attila was stopped. For the moment, Europe survived. Yet the victory came at a terrible cost. Rome's army was shattered once again. And unlike earlier centuries, the empire no longer had the resources to rebuild quickly. Its manpower was exhausted. Its treasury nearly empty. Its provinces slipping away one by one. Still, Attila wasn't finished. The following year, he invaded Italy itself. Cities were destroyed across the north. Refugees flooded southward. Famine and disease spread rapidly. Panic consumed the empire. This was supposed to be the heart of Roman civilization. And now even Italy was vulnerable. But then suddenly, Attila turned back. The exact reason remains debated. Some historians believe disease spread through his army. Others say food shortages forced him to retreat. There are even stories claiming Pope Leo I personally convinced Attila to spare Rome. Whatever the reason, the empire had escaped total destruction. Barely. Then, in 453 AD, Attila died unexpectedly after a night of heavy drinking. And almost immediately his empire collapsed into chaos. For a moment, it seemed like Rome might survive after all. But the damage had already been done. The Western Roman Empire was now nothing more than a weakened shell surrounded by ambitious warlords and invading tribes. And the people inside the empire were losing faith completely. Because by this point, Rome wasn't just fighting enemies outside its borders. It was rotting from within. Corruption infected nearly every level of government. Powerful aristocrats grew richer while ordinary citizens suffered under crushing taxes. Some Roman elites became wealthier than the state itself. And instead of supporting the empire, many focused only on protecting their own fortunes. Meanwhile, political instability spiraled out of control. Emperors rose and fell constantly. Some ruled for only months before being assassinated. Others were puppets controlled by military generals. The title of emperor, once feared across the world, had become almost meaningless. And as leadership weakened, the Roman military changed forever. For centuries, Rome's legions had been the most disciplined fighting force on earth. But maintaining those armies required enormous wealth. And Rome was running out of money. Continuous warfare drained the treasury year after year. At the same time, the empire's economy began collapsing under its own weight. One major reason was slavery. Rome's economy depended heavily on enslaved labor captured during conquests. But by the later empire, Roman expansion had slowed dramatically. Fewer conquests meant fewer slaves. And without constant expansion, the economic system that powered Rome for centuries started breaking down. Agriculture weakened. Production declined. Trade suffered. Inflation spiraled out of control. Some emperors even reduced the amount of silver in Roman coins just to create more currency. But that only made things worse. Prices exploded. Savings became worthless. And trust in the economy disappeared. To compensate for military shortages, Rome increasingly recruited barbarian mercenaries into its armies. At first, this seemed necessary. The empire needed soldiers fast. But these troops often had little loyalty to Rome itself. Many cared only about payment, land, or loyalty to their own commanders. And eventually, some of those commanders became more powerful than the emperors they supposedly served. The Roman army was no longer truly Roman. And that would prove fatal. At the same time, the empire struggled under its enormous size. At its peak, Rome stretched from Britain to Syria. Managing such a vast territory was incredibly difficult. Messages could take weeks or even months to travel across the empire. Frontier invasions often happened long before the emperor even learned about them. To solve this problem, Emperor Diocletian had divided the empire into eastern and western halves back in 285 AD. Initially, the system worked. Both halves could respond to threats more efficiently. But over time, the split created two completely different worlds. The Eastern Empire grew wealthy and stable. Its major cities controlled valuable trade routes and rich provinces. Meanwhile, the Western Empire became poorer and increasingly dependent on agriculture. As invasions intensified, the West slowly drained itself dry trying to defend collapsing borders. And perhaps the most dangerous problem of all, the people themselves were losing belief in Rome. Citizens no longer trusted their leaders. Soldiers no longer trusted the state. And entire regions began caring more about local survival than imperial unity. The idea of Rome was dying. Even religion played a role in the empire's transformation. Christianity had spread rapidly across Roman society after being legalized in 313 AD. By 380, it became the empire's official religion. This changed Roman culture completely. For centuries, Roman emperors had strengthened their authority through traditional religion, often presenting themselves as divine figures connected to the gods. But Christianity rejected emperor worship entirely. And while Christianity helped unify many people spiritually, it also weakened some of the old foundations of Roman political power. The empire that once worshipped emperors now followed a higher authority. And as old traditions faded, Rome struggled to maintain the same unity that once made it unstoppable. By the late 5th century, the Western Roman Empire existed mostly in name alone. Most of its former territory was already controlled by barbarian kingdoms. Britain was gone. North Africa was lost. Gaul had fragmented. Spain was slipping away. All that truly remained was Italy itself. And even there, Roman authority was collapsing fast. Then came the final blow. A young emperor named Romulus Augustulus sat on the throne. He was only a teenager, and the empire around him was already falling apart. But what happened next would officially end the Western Roman Empire forever. By the year 476 AD, the Western Roman Empire was already dead in everything except name. The armies were fractured. The economy was exhausted. And the emperors had become little more than symbols controlled by stronger men behind the scenes. The final emperor of the West was a boy named Romulus Augustulus. Even his name felt symbolic. Romulus, the legendary founder of Rome. Augustulus, meaning Little Augustus. The empire that once ruled the world was now represented by a child emperor with almost no real power. And standing behind him was his father, Orestes, a Roman military commander trying desperately to hold together what remained of the empire. But there was one major problem. Rome's own soldiers were turning against it. Many of the troops serving in the Western Roman army were Germanic mercenaries known as the Foederati. For years, these barbarian soldiers had fought for Rome in exchange for payment and promises of land. But now, the empire could barely pay them at all. The treasury was empty. The soldiers demanded territory in Italy itself as compensation for their service. Orestes refused. And with that single decision, Rome sealed its fate. One of the barbarian commanders serving in the Roman military was a man named Odoacer. Unlike earlier invaders, Odoacer didn't come to destroy Rome from outside the empire. He rose from inside it. He understood Roman politics, Roman weaknesses, Roman desperation. And when the Foederati revolted, Odoacer became their leader. His forces marched into Italy with little resistance. The empire no longer had the strength to stop him. City after city surrendered. Roman defenses collapsed almost immediately. Then Odoacer captured Orestes and executed him. Only one obstacle remained: the young emperor himself, Romulus Augustulus. In September of 476 AD, Odoacer entered Ravenna, the capital of the Western Roman Empire. And there, the final emperor was removed from power. No massive final battle. No dramatic last stand. No glorious ending. Just a frightened teenager watching the empire collapse around him. And strangely, Odoacer spared his life. Romulus was only 16 years old. Instead of executing him, Odoacer sent him into exile with a pension. The boy who symbolized Rome's final emperor simply disappeared from history. And with him, the Western Roman Empire officially ended. After more than 1,000 years, Rome was gone. Or at least, the Rome people thought they knew. Because what makes the fall of Rome so fascinating is this. Rome didn't truly vanish overnight. Its institutions survived. Its culture survived. Its laws survived. Even the invaders who conquered Roman lands often tried to imitate Rome rather than erase it. Odoacer himself didn't declare a brand new empire. Instead, he sent the imperial insignia to the Eastern Roman Emperor in Constantinople. It was a message to the world. There would no longer be a Western emperor. The empire in the West was finished. But in the East, Rome still lived on. Today we call it the Byzantine Empire. But the people living there called themselves Romans for nearly another 1,000 years. From the mighty walls of Constantinople, the Eastern Empire survived invasion after invasion. While Western Europe fell into chaos, the Byzantine Empire preserved Roman law, Roman government, and ancient knowledge. And incredibly, it would survive until 1453, nearly 1,000 years after the fall of the Western Empire. But Rome's influence spread far beyond politics. Its impact shaped the modern world itself. Look around today, and traces of Rome are everywhere. Roman roads became the foundations of European trade routes. Roman engineering influenced bridges, aqueducts, and architecture for centuries. Roman law became the basis for many modern legal systems. Even language carries Rome's legacy. French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, all descended from Latin, the language once spoken by Roman citizens thousands of years ago. And perhaps most importantly, Rome shaped the idea of empire itself. For centuries after its collapse, rulers across Europe obsessed over restoring Roman glory. Kings crowned themselves emperors. Nations claimed to be Rome's true successor. Even the Holy Roman Empire, founded centuries later, built its identity around the memory of Rome. Because despite its collapse, Rome never stopped haunting the world. But maybe the most important lesson from Rome's fall isn't about invasions or battles. It's about decline. Because Rome wasn't destroyed when the barbarians arrived. By then, the empire was already weakened from centuries of corruption, inequality, political instability, and economic collapse. The invasions were simply the final blow. And that's what makes Rome's story feel so unsettling even today. The greatest superpower on Earth. The richest empire of the ancient world. The civilization that believed itself eternal. Still collapsed. Not in one moment, but slowly. One crisis at a time. One bad leader at a time. One broken system at a time. Until eventually, there was nothing left strong enough to save it. And maybe that's why people remain obsessed with Rome even after 1,500 years. Because Rome's fall doesn't just feel like ancient history. It feels like a warning. A reminder that no civilization, no matter how powerful, is guaranteed to last forever. The Roman Empire once looked unstoppable. Its armies dominated continents. Its cities amazed the world. Its emperors believed Rome would rule forever. But history proved otherwise. Empires rise. Empires expand. And eventually empires fall. Yet somehow, Rome achieved something almost no other civilization ever has. Even after its collapse, it never truly disappeared. Its ideas survived. Its culture survived. Its influence survived. And in many ways, the world still lives in the shadow of Rome. That if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more history documentaries like this. And leave a comment below. Even a simple comment helps the channel a lot. Share this video with your friends so more people can discover the incredible story of Rome. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.